I'll call the meeting to order. It's at 6:30. Our first action will be to go into executive session, so I'd be looking for a motion to do that.
I'd move that because premature public knowledge regarding union contract negotiations would clearly place the town at a substantial disadvantage. I would move that we enter executive session to discuss police union contract negotiations under the provisions of 1 VSA 313A1B and invite Police Chief Patrick Foley, Police Lieutenant Josh Moore, Finance Director Shirley Goodall-Lackey, and Town Manager Eric Wells to join.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed? And no abstentions. So we are in executive session and we'll head downstairs. did call a meeting to order about 6:30. We went directly into executive session, which just ended, and we're now following along on the proposed agenda, which is the next thing that we're looking at are the minutes of August 17th, and we do have, with Jeff being here, we do have a quorum of the folks that were here at the last meeting.
Okay.
So I'd need a motion to approve the minutes of August 17th.
So move, subject to modification.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Page 1. I think under item number 5, animal trapping policy, Kim Royer with the fish, it should be fish and wildlife, and I filed fish and wildlife, not fish and game.
Oh, okay, good.
Good point.
Page 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kim Royer's name is also spelled 2 different ways, her last name.
Oh, I see that. Thank you. It should be AR.
Which, it's R-O-Y-E-R, I think, isn't it? The correct spelling?
I will double check and make sure I have it accurate.
Whatever it is, it's going to be corrected, all right. And page 2.
Item 9, I think it should be bar anecdote.
Yep.
Which one? Bar anecdote?
Second motion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I couldn't figure out which one that was, but you're right. And page 3. Hearing no other corrections then, all those in favor of approving the minutes of August 17th, 2021, say aye. Aye. Any opposed and 2 abstentions, Greta and Gordon. And we'll move on then to public comment. And it looks like there may be some folks in the audience who wish to make some public comment on issues tonight, and we will also invite people on the remote hookup to comment if they wish to. So if there's anyone who wishes to make public comment, please come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. And you can unmask, please, so we can hear you.
Right here?
Yes. No, that does not project. That's only for the taping of this.
Okay. So I'm Ursula White, and I'm here because I've been a member for the Edge since they're open, and I'm very sad that it's closing down, because I just wanted to say that the Edge is like more than an exercise place. It is a meeting place for mainly a lot of seniors. A lot of people come by bus with crutches and walkers, and it's their social interaction. And I think it would be really important that Williston would have a facility like that, because it's gonna be hard to see that closed. And also the pool is a big thing over there. They have all the swim teams there, which now they have to go to Essex Junction, and Essex Junction doesn't have a pool that is the right size for the swim team. So I just wanted to say that I'm very sad and wish that Williston would have a community center, a senior center, a swimming pool. That would be very helpful.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishes to speak? Sure.
So I'm Kim Harding-Marcy, and I'm here representing Sustainable Williston. And I think if we took a vote, nobody's in favor of climate change progressing. So we're all on the same team. And we're very much looking forward to the discussion of the Energy Committee for the town next session. That brings huge advantages to the town being represented at regional and statewide discussions of moving forward and provides the town with all kinds of support and ideas. I'm generally the kind of person who, why reinvent the wheel if somebody else has already figured out a great idea? So the other thing we're really hoping you will place on an agenda item is the energy coordinator, which the town plan calls for. There's a lot of things to be hopeful about. More and more people are joining the climate movement. More and more people understand the nature of the crisis, unfortunately, due to the many tragedies this summer that are related to the climate crisis. We actually have all the technology we need to solve this crisis right now. So we are looking for expertise and focus and commitment to solve this, and we believe an energy coordinator would bring that kind of expertise and focus to the town. The best antidote to despair is action. This is the greatest moral challenge that human beings have faced in our entire history. And we are calling on you guys to be a huge part of how we move forward and solve it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And yes.
My name is Joan Stoddard, and I am representing the Williston seniors. And I don't know if you're aware of the fact that at the end of 2022, we no longer have a place to have a meeting. That area, the owner of the Masonic Hall and the business across the street from there, the owner is going to raise that, and I don't know if that's going to be part of the new park and apartments and businesses that are going to go in that area behind over by Walmart and extend out, I think, to Route 2. I don't know if he considers that to be part of it, but I know he's been considering putting in a hotel, another hotel in Williston. But we're going to need a place. We need a meeting room and we need a small kitchen. And you have, what, a year and 4 months to decide where the Williston seniors can go. We can't bring people in. When we invite speakers to come, it has to be a speaker that we can't pay. So I want to know, and the other members would like to know exactly what the town is going to do to help support the Williston seniors. You have a lot of seniors in this town. I think it's the second highest in the state. Used to be the first, but I think now it's the second highest in the state of seniors living in this area. And what is the town going to do for us? They do an awful lot for the children in this town, but how much do they do for the seniors? So it's just food for thought. We have a year and 4 months, and then we don't have a place. So Ursula brought up a community center, which I think is very good. It could be used by all ages, kids as well as adults. And it would be nice to have a swimming pool because, like Ursula, I belong to the Edge here in Williston, and that's going out at the end of this month. So I'd like you to put something on your agenda to see what can happen for us in the future.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone on the remote hookup that wishes to speak?
Yep, I have one person, Terry. Stephen, I was just using the chat, so I'll make sure you can hear me. Stephen, I'm going to unmute you and you'll be able to speak in just a moment here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. I wanted to be there in person, but I was not able to make it, but I'm glad I was able to get to the online version. My name is Stephen Gioacchini. I live here with my wife and my 4-year-old son here in Williston. I work over near the Edge, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I actually work at an engineering company on the other side of the parking lot from there, and we use that place extensively, and I see the benefits of that place. And it just seems like a real tragedy that we're kind of losing that. And I realize it's a private business, and it was a private sale and everything like that, but it was very quick, and it just kind of moved and took everybody really by surprise. And seeing this place not being there and the benefits that can come from this. And just like the First Lady said, Ursula, that, you know, it was a great opportunity for the seniors to be able to meet there, to be able to go use the therapy pool. They had physical therapy there. It's also an outstanding field house in a tremendous amount of space. There's a school there, there's 2 pools, and this is a real tragedy that this is going to be converted into something industrial. And from the rumors that I've heard, and I'm not going to spread rumors, but it's going to be another FedEx or something like that. And so for this facility to have gotten by without anybody else's say in it is very sad to me. And I'm having a hard time coming to grips with it, because, you know, this is a place that gets long, cold winters. And when it really hits in, you know, in November, December, people are going to realize it's difficult to go all the way to South Burlington. Even though it's not that much further, it makes that much of a difference, and especially for older people or younger people with kids like us. And yeah, it's just not that easy to get around. And I would like to think that there's a possibility of having a Williston Rec Center, but I wanted to mention that this was a little bit of a missed opportunity. I don't know if missed opportunity is the word, but it kind of got pulled out from underneath us. You know, whereas if I had known that this place was going up for sale, I probably would have jumped right up and said something and maybe got things talking sooner to see if we can keep this instead of it, you know, just going to another industrial site. And so I just wanted to make my voice heard on this and see if there's anything that we can do either for a new place like this, or I know that, and that's really hard to come by, and that's not going to be something that's going to be a quick and easy fix, but something to pay attention to in the future, where locations like this that serve a purpose don't get, you know, repurposed into something completely different, when there's plenty of franchise chains that could have, you know, jumped in on this, or could have had the opportunity to jump on this and keep everybody still involved. And there's a lot of opportunity in that building for what it offers that is just going to go away. And it's a sad situation. So would you like to add it?
Anyone else on the remote?
No one else for public commentary.
I've asked Eric to briefly talk about the process of providing for a community center or some other kind of a facility for citizens of Williston.
Sure. Thanks, Terry, and thanks everyone who's listening at home. Also, I received a number of emails and comments about this in the last week, and it's always welcome and invigorating to hear the public participation and asking questions about government processes and needs of the community. But as I was preparing, just kind of looking back at the town's history with adding new facilities, the last 20 years, the town's built a new fire station, police station, and public works facility. And the process with each of those facilities was a multiple-year endeavor. And I will say this all starts in the town's capital planning effort for the future of our facilities and needs in town. And we identified the possible community center in the most recent capital plan as something to explore further. And as I was looking back, our process the town has followed for any new facility would start with a needs assessment to understand what the needs are, what the community is potentially looking for, and then understanding what the costs are to go with that. And with those, there's some key questions of where could you locate such facility, what amenities would be offered, what's the cost for those amenities, and then understanding what's the ongoing operational cost besides the capital cost, as an investment in a new facility like this comes with it an immediate investment in the operations of that facility. So the town has undergone an initial study on a community center back in 2007, which I started thumbing through today to get some perspective there. So I believe what we'll be looking to do is continuing this dialogue during the budgeting process as we look at the capital budget and think about whether the town is wanting to put some funds towards a study for a needs assessment and understanding what the next steps may be in looking at this type of community investment. but it's certainly something where I'll look further to some processes for the board to consider and think about. But it's, you know, with government processes and making a major decision like this, it takes an amount of time, and it takes community engagement and public participation, and ultimately town's decision to invest in a facility for its residents. So it's, I would say, stay tuned, and certainly like hearing everyone's voices. And I invite anyone to reach out to me as manager to if they have questions about processes like this moving ahead, and I'll be happy to chat or trade emails with folks.
Thank you, Eric. So we've heard our public comments from folks both here and on the setup, and we'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, and that is with Executive Director of CCRPC, Charlie Baker, and Eleni Churchill from that organization as well, to talk about the I-89 Interstate Corridor Study Update, and then following that, the Regional Planning Commission Annual Report.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So I'm going to first give you as quickly as I can. And can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you, Charlie.
Okay. I've got a presentation I'm going to share with you around the 89 study. And Eric, can you enable participant screen sharing?
Yep, I think I just did that, Charlie. Give it a...
Okay, there we go. Got it. Thank you. Sorry, just, okay, you can see that okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm just going to give you a quick sense of overview, where they are with vision and goals, where we are, what we looked at in terms of interchanges, and now where we are in terms of bundles and this TDM strategic model that we're using to help develop some of those bundles. And I know Williston has not been very involved in this conversation, so I'm going to throw too much at you in the hopes that will generate some questions. So, first, the study area included the entirety of 89 within Chittenden County, all 37 miles, 7 interchanges. And here's just a quick graphic showing the scope of work really for the consultant and us. We're now kind of looking at alternatives. And you can see if you're going back, you know, task 3 was vision and goals, task 4 was interchange evaluation. And so now we're trying to put together packages of things that might work. And this is a little bit more graphical view of that, particularly as we looked at what to do around the interchanges. We looked at a lot of different options. We're also looking at things that can be done at either a corridor basis or a countywide basis in terms of different types of transportation programming. And then we'll come up with some recommendations and a final report. And, you know, there's going to be different types of recommendations. You know, some might be minor capital investments that municipality or VTrans can follow through with pretty quickly. Some might be operational type things like GMT transit service. And other things might be major capital projects that will, you know, particularly if we're talking about an interchange, have to go through the federal NEPA process and require an environmental impact statement. So this is really just the beginning of what could be a much longer process. Here are the 6 goals that we have. I'm not going to read these, but the committees, there's an advisory committee, spent quite a bit of time on these. And you'll note the note down at the bottom about uncertainty. You know, so there's just uncertainty. You know, we don't know about the impacts of COVID in terms of people continuing to work from home. Traffic volumes have been down a little bit. And even climate change, you know, there are a lot of things that can change. So we've kind of committed to monitoring what is happening here, and then trying to come up with triggers to implement different pieces. So the interchanges, when we started talking, we had a meeting in your room there, geez, probably a year and a half ago, and some different interchange ideas came up. You see on the left there the full list of 8 that we took a look at, including one in Bolton, a new one between exit 12 and 13 that was labeled 12B, and all the way up to Milton. We kind of spent some time with the public, with the committees, we got that down to 3 interchange options that looked like they had promise. Because what really started this was issues around exit 14. And so South Burlington became a lot of the focus for the conversation. So we were looking at something at 12B, at 13, and at 14. And I'll show you some of the concept plans. So this is at exit 14, a diverging diamond, similar to what is planned at exit 16, where you kind of cross, it kind of makes the lefts free flow. It does reduce capacity here a little bit, but if the traffic, if it's either down from people working at home or can divert into other locations, maybe it can work. It's definitely a friendlier design for pedestrians and bicyclists, although still a lot of traffic there. When we look at exit 13, looked at this idea of making it into a full interchange. Right now, it's obviously just a partial interchange that takes you on 189 over to Route 7. This idea, and there's a lot of detail in this design I'm not going to delve into, but it's called a single point diamond interchange. So all the movements come to one traffic light and would provide full movements. So you could go down Kennedy and go northbound on 89, for instance, which you can't do now. And also, one of the ideas was here is that we could get rid of the southerly barrel of 189 and make 189 into more of an arterial type road, maybe similar to Kennedy Drive going all the way to Route 7. Again, trying to make it friendlier for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is just a zoom in of that. And then exit 12B, getting a little closer to Williston. You may be aware Tilly Drive is real close to, this is where Heinsberg Road crosses I-89. Tilly Drive, there's a lot of medical offices there right now. In order to make the interchange movements work, we kind of have to route the traffic through Tilly Drive, and a traffic light there for the northbound traffic, and southbound would have both a slip ramp and a little U ramp. So that is the idea behind the exit 12B. And we kind of evaluated, this is just to let you know that we evaluated these designs and ideas against the goals, and then came up with metrics attached to each goal. I'm not going to review these in detail, but just to give you a sense of the process. I think we had 20 something different metrics that we looked at. And we looked at them in a little bit separated. 14 is accomplishing different things than doing 12B or 13. Both 12B and 13, or either 12B or 13, definitely divert some traffic away from exit 14, which was helpful up at that interchange. And so here's just a little bit, and I'll send this presentation to Eric, just so you can have it and post it wherever is most appropriate for the town. But here's some strengths and weaknesses of 12B and the 13 options. And we did a little bit of the similar thing at 14. We're looking at a cloverleaf or the diverging diamond interchange. Ended up recommending the diverging diamond. And the committee met, I think it was at the end of June. This is where we kind of ended up. This is where we are right now. We're looking at basically 5 alternatives, 5 bundles, if you will. The first one being no build. The second one is how much can we accomplish without making a very expensive, costly investment in the interstate infrastructure. We termed it bundle 2. It's more of a transportation demand management, bicycling, pedestrian, transit oriented type of alternative there. And then the other bundles kind of build on that, with bundle 3 has the exit 14 improvement. Bundle 4 has the exit 14 improvement plus the exit 13 improvement, and bundle 5 has the exit 14 improvement plus 12B. And we're still also need to kind of look at, do we need a third lane on I-89, particularly going north of exit 14? So we'll take a look at that. And as we dig deeper, we're kind of at the process right now of digging deeper into that bundle 2 idea. Here's just kind of a list of ideas, transit, bike ped, park and ride, intelligent transportation systems or using technology, people working from home, land use changes. And we have a TDM focus group that is working on that with a consultant team right now, which is led by RSG. And we're using a tool called a strategic model. I've kind of labeled here a TDM strategic model. So we're going to get some recommendations or sense of how well some of these investments or policy changes could impact traffic in this area. And so that is where we are right now, is really focused on this TDM work. And we're hoping to wrap that up over the next couple months, and we'll do another round of stakeholder, public engagement this fall, winter. And so, let us know if you'd like to come back. I think one of the questions, I'm not sure if this is exactly how we got on the agenda, was, does Williston want to weigh into this conversation a little bit more directly? We've been having a lot of conversation with South Burlington. Their city council voted 3-2 to support 12B over exit 13. But there was a lot of, it was a lot of opinions on both sides of the conversation. And so we know we need to do some more work on that. I certainly welcome the town of Williston weighing into this conversation. 12B in particular does have some potential for reducing traffic at exit 12. Which may be an interesting conversation. Maybe not as big of an improvement would need to be made at exit 12 as part of the circle alternatives that we came up with a number of years ago. If we were to do 12B, but it's not really on the drawing board at this point. We're still in the planning stage. So, and I do want to recommend to anyone watching this or any of the select board members, there's a website here. Envision89.com. Whoop, sorry, I was going to try to highlight that, but instead I clicked and lost it. There we go. Envision89 is the website. So that was a really quick I-89 introduction, and let me know if that sparks any questions or conversation for you.
Any questions for Charlie regarding this? It looks like this is going to be a big project, and for us to understand it, probably we need to have access to the presentation online. I think, Eric.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll certainly share that with the select board.
Yeah. Are there any questions for Charlie on this?
Just quickly, Charlie, Jeff Ferris. My question has to do, it's mostly looking down the road and realizing I-89 is a federal highway. What do you envision the ask will be to the municipalities to help fund whatever comes out of this in terms of a construction project? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it is an interstate highway. The federal government, federal highway certainly has an interest in making sure that highway still functions well. The ask to the municipalities in terms of cost share, at this point, if it's an improvement to the interstate, it's going to be a state project. So that would be a state local match, and federal predominant would fund most of it. If there are some local road improvements or like a bike path or something like that, that might be the type of project where there would be more local involvement. But even, curious question, like the park and ride lot in Williston, I'm assuming the town is not having to contribute to that, but I don't know that for sure.
I would also point out there is no park and ride.
Sorry, I'm always looking at the future. I know what's coming, but I believe that's a totally state federal cost share project, and I think larger investments like that would be at that level. And I think I should also mention that we all are very aware of the issues going on with climate change, and and even what the state's trying to accomplish with the Climate Council, the Comprehensive Energy Plan. So a lot of our focus on this transportation demand management stage is to make sure that we are consistent with the state's energy goals and frankly, our regional and municipal energy goals as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Charlie before we move on to the report?
Just, Charlie, it's not really a question as much as a comment. I'm gonna need, I would like a lot more information about this entire project.
Yep.
It's kind of taken me by surprise here tonight, I guess. Maybe it shouldn't have, but it did. You know, even just going back to the history of it, and it's nothing I want to get into tonight, but I mean, I saw when it flashed up on the screen, and I put my glasses on, and then they started fogging because we're in masks, but I think I saw that there was even a possibility that Bolton was going to be looking at getting an exit.
So we looked at 8 interchanges and kind of narrowed it down to 3 to focus on.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is some level of interest in Bolton or Milton in an interchange. It's not something that we're moving forward with right now at the Regional Planning Commission level, as it doesn't really address the issue and the need that's kind of started this study around exit 14.
Yeah, no, I understand. But you know, it does flash back to, you know, I'm a native, and I know that Bolton has been looking for an exit for a very long time. Yep. They're always a bridesmaid and never a bride on that one. But I want to get a lot more into, I want to learn a lot more about this entire project. And I say that to ask, you know, how far along are you? I see that it narrowed down to three exits in South Burlington. Is that okay? Now we're gonna focus on that, or is that been decided? Would it be crazy to come in at this hour and say, wait a minute, could somebody present this entire thing to us again?
Happy to you know, kind of make sure you have a full understanding of what we've done. You know, there's a lot of analysis and data behind all this that I you know, did not take the time to share with you tonight. So happy to dig deeper into it so you have a better understanding of the process. And you know, any input is, you know, always welcome. Some we could do more with, and some you know, we may not be able to. But you know, so happy to dig deeper anytime, and in whatever form makes sense. You know, even, you know, whether it's at the select board or even if it was a little bit, you know, a separate conversation, and invite whoever makes sense to come to.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good, thank you, Charlie. So continue on now with the annual report.
Yep. Let me let's see if I can just real quickly switch. Now, did that work? Are you looking at a blank screen?
Blank. Well, looking at you right now.
I overrode your screen share,
report.
Charlie, when you were doing questions, so you'll have to.
Thank you. Easily done.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
There we are. Yeah, thank you for that. And in respect to the last conversation, I knew we were throwing a lot at you here tonight. So happy to have a follow-up as needed. This is our kind of traditional annual report to you that we touch base every fall. This is kind of a customer service check-in from my view. You know, we do a lot of work with each of our towns. So the first, I'm hoping you got this in your packet. The first page is kind of background on the RPC. You know, we're both a regional planning commission and a metropolitan planning organization under federal law. We have a 29-member board. And, you know, we use your municipal dues to leverage federal and state funds, about a 10-to-1 investment on local or return on local investment. And Eric, I apologize to you that your representation of Williston is not reflected on this first page this past fiscal year. No offense.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, we didn't forget about you. But thank you to your representatives. Like you, all of your representatives have been very active participants in our processes. The second page goes into some specific projects we worked on with the town around energy planning, emergency management, brownfields. I'm not going to read every single one of these. The phosphorus control plan is something you know, more significant. The multi-use path, your official map, the form-based code study that's going on in Taft's Corners now. which is really probably one of the largest projects we're working on this fiscal year and last. And then a couple different road projects, North Williston Road, Mountain View, Williston 2A. Happy to get any feedback on any of these projects, good or bad. But I know, I think our staff has, enjoyed working with your staff on these things.
Where is it?
I'm going to take that as no feedback at the moment.
Hang on a second, Charlie. Jeff here again. I'm on page 4, and I made a lib comment about the Williston Park and Ride. First of all, I apologize for not being prepared for tonight's meeting. I was unable to, so this is the first I've been able to look at this, and I didn't realize that construction for the Park and Ride is scheduled to begin in 2022. I hope that is correct. I just want to point out, I've been on the select board for, anybody know how long? And I think a park and ride in Williston has been an issue since I was on, the first day I was on the select board. So it will be a major milestone if that can be completed.
Agreed. So I guess that committed you to another term. You can't leave until it's done. It may be like a 2-year project.
Disagree with that.
Yeah, and so thank you, Jeff. As he noted on page 4, the bottom of page 4, we start to get into the projects that you have in our transportation improvement program, which are also in the state's capital program. And so we've tried to show you kind of how much in terms of dollar investments, and also as best we know about timing for those right now. Some of them are under construction now. Some of them start next year, some the year after. And then there's a number of them going on to page 5 that we don't have a project schedule for, particularly around exit 12 improvements, which were identified back in the CERC alternative process. Yeah, maybe I should pause after those projects. I'm not the project manager for any of those, but if there was a specific question or something, I'm happy to get back to you. And if not, then I will move on. In FY22, so this is kind of in our current fiscal year now, we have one project in addition to those that have continued from last year that we are working with you on at US 2 and Talcott Road and Cottonwood. And then the last couple pages are a number of activities that we engaged in the last year without regard to one specific municipality. Our regional plan, ECOS plan implementation. We do a legislative forum every December. We expect to do that again this December. More work on public engagement and racial equity. We've engaged with an equity consultant to help us figure out how to get better in that regard. The Building Homes Together campaign, focus on more housing and more affordable housing in Chittenden County. Some public health work, again, emergency management, energy planning. And one thing I did hear the public comment about energy planning. The state legislature, this doesn't appear in the report, so this is kind of additional information for you. But in FY22, the state legislature has funded regional planning commissions to be able to hire an energy project manager. And so we just hired Ann Janda. She just started today, was her first day. And so we'll have some more conversation with Williston and other towns as to how we can put that resource to best effect for you all. And I think I'll leave my report at that. I know you have a lot on your agenda tonight. But any questions on our report?
Thank you, Charlie. Questions from the board? What was the name of the person who's the energy person that you just hired?
Yeah, her name is Ann Janda. And last name Janda, Janda. She has done previous work for the town of Essex, Heinsberg, Shelburne. She was, I think, director of administration at Shelburne and Milton. So bring pretty good familiarity with municipal processes, but and also has done some energy work. So she's very excited to get started on it.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
And Charlie, did you describe her as a energy project planner?
Project manager, actually.
Manager, okay.
Yeah, and so the legislature really invested in us to hire a position to really help municipalities implement projects that are in your energy plans. So, but it is, with the caveat, it is one person, so they can't work miracles, but, I think we're kind of hoping that she can help work with your energy committee and as they come up with priorities, help move some of them forward. And there may be some that are multi-town type efforts also, right? There's a lot of similarity in different towns' energy plans.
Okay, good.
Good, thanks. Any other questions?
Terry, Andy Watts, our new representative, he's asked if he could make a brief comment.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Hey, Andy, I'm just gonna connect you right now. I'll make you a panelist so you can share your camera if you like. Yep, here you go.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to thank Charlie. I wanted to let the board know that next week will be my first attendance as the representative for the town of Williston. I've been trying to do my homework, learning all of these things. I've met with Charlie and found his presentation tonight to be very informative. I look forward to serving the town and just wanted to let everyone know that I'm getting ready and I'm excited about the opportunity.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate your doing this for us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Charlie. We look forward to hearing more from you in the next couple of months or so on the highway projects.
Yeah, very good. Look forward to that. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
Thanks, Charlie.
And we'll move on then to the water main extension policy proposal. And Eric, you're going to lead this off, and if we have questions, Bruce Hoare is here from Public Works as well.
Yep. Well, thanks, Terry. This came up as we have a request for a water main extension coming up from CSWD this fall. And as I dug into kind of the governance process the town's looked at in previous iterations, first of all, this doesn't come up too often. Bruce and I chatted about this, and it's maybe come up maybe once or so since he's been here. So this is something, as I looked at this and spoke with our attorney, that our water use ordinance outlines the standards for accepting new water infrastructure in town. And in these circumstances where you have a request to extend an existing main, the best practice is to have a policy established to set standards to meet for the request to be granted. In these circumstances, the select board would serve as the water commissioners to consider such a request. So I said these tend to be intermittent, and we're not talking about new development, just extending existing infrastructure. What we've done is include a draft policy that's been reviewed by the town attorney. This establishes direction for these benchmarks to be met for the board to then consider action on accepting a request. For this evening, I'm asking for the board's feedback on this. It's, I'd say in terms of policy, it's not extensive, but it sets some minimal standards that staff would address for the board to consider. In a similar vein to our winter maintenance sidewalk policy, where there's some staff recommendation and some standards that are looked to be met. This is our draft of it. Should the board want to consider establishing this policy, we can put this back on the agenda for possible action and look for any feedback the board has tonight on this process question and draft before you.
Questions from the board regarding policy?
Sorry, again, I'm a little behind the 8 ball on this. Hey, Bruce. First question would be is, who would we anticipate? You mentioned Champlain Water District. Who else might be an applicant for a water main extension?
It would be, this particular request, the solid waste district. But, you know, I might turn to Bruce for that. You know, these are pretty intermittent, but Bruce, could you think of any type of example?
Yeah. Not you, Bruce.
No, not me, you.
That's right.
I mean, it could be, you know, any place north of the interstate that we don't necessarily have water going to now.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I just throw out one of them. I've been asked more than once about extending it up Old Stage Road.
Okay.
The extension, it goes a partial way up there, but not very far because we run out of pressure. That's the issue. Same way with the Ledgewood development would be another example. But, you know, for them to have water up there, you're talking about a pump station and everything else. So those are the kind of places that could ask for something like that.
So let me go back, and I'm sorry, and I don't mean to dominate, and if I am, or my questions are getting too weird, feel free to stop. Do we have a water district in town, an area that's designated to be served by municipal water?
We've always done a de facto one, for lack of a better term. We've used a sewer service area basically as the water service area.
Okay.
If you look at the map, excuse me, it follows it pretty well.
Okay.
The example, Oak Hill up to Thomas Chittenden Health Center.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Is a little out, but that one now is Thomas Chittenden Health Center is on sewer though as well. So north or south of the interstate, Hurricane Lane. Would be, you know, as far as is within what we're using.
Yeah.
Those are basically the outliers.
Right.
Goes all the way down to Williston Woods.
Oh, they're on municipal water. Okay.
They are.
Yeah.
The system interior is basically considered a pride. It's theirs. I mean, we own everything, but if something happens, they have to take care of it. But
okay. I realize this is, to some, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but to others who maybe just don't know, we don't have any issues with, unlike sewer, where we have limited capacity available to us. That is not true with water. Champlain Water District could supply us with probably however much water we need.
well, yes and no. I mean,
Okay.
you're right. I mean, the Champlain Water District gets the water from Lake Champlain, so there's plenty of water. A matter of converting it to drinking water, and then as far as for the town of Williston, it would come down to the storage for fire protection.
All right.
We're in good shape because we just added the new tank, or doubled the size of that tank, took the Tower Lane tank, moved it up to
Right, the new one.
Mountain View.
Mountain View, right.
So we're in good shape that way for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Okay, and the extension, this policy would cover municipally owned water mains. For instance, like Chittenden Solid Waste District, there's the potential that water main could be privately.
I would say initially we should make it where it leaves the terminus where it is now to go down to global boundaries. That's where it ends now. I would say that initially, if it's going to serve just the Chittenden Solid Waste District, that line is theirs.
Okay.
In the state's eyes, it's going to be ours. Because they're not going to give them a permit to have a water system. It's the same now as when we go into private developments, Jeff. We always give them a letter that says, this is part of the town of Williston's system, but you're responsible for all the lines, any breaks, those kind of things will be on the homeowners association, only in private, totally private developments.
Yeah.
So that's an agreement right up front. So I would say for this one, I would say we do the same thing, that they own that line through that kind of agreement. Once again, the state, the extension's gonna be to the town of Williston underneath our permit to operate.
Okay.
But we would make that side agreement, for lack of a better term, that says, okay, we're gonna do this, well, unless somebody else comes and starts wanting to connect on, They own everything though out there.
Right, right, exactly. Okay, so, so this would apply to these quote-unquote, I'm gonna call them private extensions, such as the one that might happen with Chittenden Solid Waste District. Okay, okay, I think that's it. Anything else we should know?
No, I mean, they're ready to come in with their request.
Yeah, that, looking to have them potentially come in the next month or so. And as we looked at this and being still fairly new to the manager's role, I said, okay, what do we do when we get a request like this? What's our process? And this really, by establishing a policy like this, it makes it so the town and the water commissioners are not acting without a standard benchmark to approve an extension. But if you have an extension and you approve it, you've got something to fall back on, that this section 3, that it's in the public good, necessity, and convenience. It doesn't present harm or danger to existing water supply system from a capacity or distribution perspective, and the request does not harm system reliability and water quality, which I'd ask the Public Works Department, the director, to provide a memo and analysis on those points for the board to consider and weighing any of those requests for this policy draft.
Okay.
The only reason the solid waste district wants this water is for their compost
Yes.
Right.
system, because they put a pond in that they thought they'd get enough water into, excuse me, and they do not. They've been buying water from us, trucking it from the hydrant up to the site.
I mean, just total aside, it surprises me that a well doesn't make more sense for them, but I guess that's their decision.
They have a great well on the other side of the road that feeds their office and the one house there that they own. But I guess they don't think they can get enough water out of that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, their decision, yeah.
Their money, a lot of it.
Yeah,
It's gonna be quite,
oh, yeah.
really expensive.
My, the only questions I had were more technical. I mean, first of all, I did want to say, it seemed, I get why we're doing this, and I know a lot of our policies are, the town of Williston is hereby in favor of good government and against bad government. This public good, necessity, and convenience, I don't know that we need a policy to say the select board should consider if something's in the public good or not. It's not like we sit here and go, whoa, wait a minute, public good. I'm glad that was written down. But that being said, I would, some of the wording on this, and I don't want to be too anal retentive lawyer about this, but I guess I'm going to be anyway, is that when it says shall find the following criteria are met, I should think it'd be better if it said shall consider the following criteria, because if you say shall find they are met, then that's all 3 criteria have to be met, and each thing within it, public good, necessity, and convenience. The other thing is necessity. A modifier on this might be good, reasonable necessity, because otherwise, you could argue something isn't really necessary. I mean, the solid waste district getting water so they can make their product may be argued, it could be argued that that's not really necessary for the town. On the other hand, it is a public good that they are doing what they're doing, and we want to support them. So if it's reasonably necessary, I guess that might be good. But I mean, that kind of thing, I think, I'd recommend that those kind of changes be made to free it up a little bit.
Sounds good.
So if you could make those changes and pass it by Ted before we look at this again, just to make sure that it looks fine to him. Question that I don't know the answer to, but if CSWD is going to buy or extend the line, and they're going to purchase water then from the town, do they pay then a sewer fee too, even though they're not on sewer? No. Okay.
We have quite a few users that either pay water or sewer.
Okay.
Not everybody pays both.
Right. Anything else before we move on to the next issue on this one? Okay.
No, good, thank you.
Moving on then to Muddy Brook Culvert Replacement Project funding. And Eric, I think you're going to start off with this and then move to Bruce and Shirley.
Yep, I'll give a brief introduction. I've asked Bruce and Shirley to explain this in a little more detail. So I'm sure as everyone's aware, our long-awaited Muddy Brook culvert replacement project is well underway at this point. This is a reminder, it's a shared project with the city of South Burlington as we're splitting the costs. I've asked Bruce to provide just a general update on how the project's going to kick off this item, and the board may recall we updated you last spring when the bids came in that they were above the engineer's estimates in many parts due to the construction market right now. And we're coming back for the board to consider how we're going to pay for the shortfall from our bonded amount. We can get into the numbers a little bit further here, but staff's identified a couple possible options to meet that shortfall. Looking for the board's feedback on those options this evening, and this can come back on a future agenda to consider action. And certainly look for board feedback and any additional information to help you make a decision. So I'll turn it over to Bruce, and then ask Shirley to walk through the financial options here.
So the project started on time. However, at this point, it's estimated they're about 2 weeks behind. And the reason for that is a little company called AT&T gave us quite the problem with moving their cable out of the way. Actually had to go out of our way to accommodate them, which was the building of a special bridge to protect their cable over Muddy Brook, because they came out with a moratorium that said that they would not do anything during the Olympics. So that had to happen. We did get a commitment from AT&T that said that they will be responsible for any delays and costs associated with that cable and that bridge being put up, and those are going to be substantial. Of course, you know, it's like all projects of this size, we won't know what that is until the end when we start fighting about money. But we have it pretty well documented that they're the ones that said that money wasn't an issue. So anyway, they're, according to our representative who's out there, he figures they're about 2 weeks behind. They're working Saturdays now, and probably for the next 2 or 3 Saturdays. And then after that, they'll probably go to longer work days to try to get caught back up. The project is supposed to be finished by November 19th. Excuse me. But because of the 2-week delay, we're talking late November, early December. And it may end up with just a base course asphalt put down with the top course being put on in the spring, which will further the cost of that delay that'll go back to AT&T. So they are moving along, they're working really well. We've had very few complaints. We actually haven't had any complaints from the traveling public. I got my first one today from one of the neighbors, one of the 2 neighbors that lives out there, and when I went over there, she was absolutely right. They're driving piles, and the piles are steel I-beams, and the machine that does that, you would probably be pretty disgusted if you stood there and watched it. The amount of smoke that comes out of it while it's driving those piles is pretty bad. The good news is they should be done doing that this week. She was complaining about the smoke, and, you know, if I'd have known this, and she wasn't wrong, but I even told her, you know, in 20-some years, I'd never had this kind of complaint before. And the minute I walked into the project and saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. So it only affects them, obviously, when the wind's blowing that direction. There's just really not much we can do about it. It's got to happen. So anyway, the project's been going along really well. The contractor's been working pretty diligently.
Questions for Bruce?
So you mentioned AT&T taking care of the cost overruns. So are we just looking to make sure we have the money there in case they don't?
No, we're making sure we have money there for things that aren't associated with that cost overrun, Terry.
Okay.
A project of, you know, 2.7 million, almost $3 million. We'd like to say that we don't ever get it wrong, but obviously there'll be change orders that go along, so that's what this is about. But you're not necessarily wrong. The contract is between South Burlington, Williston, and CCS, the contractor. So that's where we may get caught in some of that money buying for a little while till we get AT&T to, once again, they've been pretty good about it. Their local person was the one that was digging their heels in, saying that they weren't gonna move this cable, blah, blah, blah. Eric and I talked to Jenny Lyons. Jenny Lyons put us on track with some of the other people in the state to talk to. It went up the chain, and AT&T, the AT&T director for New England, hadn't heard anything about it. So then some compromises were made so that we could at least get the project started. But we do have emails and phone conversations, videotape Zoom, where they're saying they'll be responsible for overruns that can be directly related to their not moving their cable.
Okay. Other questions before we move on to Shirley and the finance?
Is that the only primary reason for the delay, like behind schedule, or are there other things that have come up?
No, that was the only one. There was one other, and I don't want to say the name because I'm going to get it wrong, but it was another telecommunications that had to move a cable, but it wasn't anything we had to make special provisions for. The AT&T cable literally used to hang on the bridge, the temporary bridge that we put in. They disconnected from the bridge. That was one of the things that had to happen so we could take the bridge out. But then it hung in the same location where the bridge was, which is obviously where they were trying to do the project at. So that's where it caused the delays.
All right, Shirley.
Okay. So as Bruce started with, we do have a shortfall on the project that we knew about once we got updated estimates from the contractor and when it went out to bid. So we knew we were going to have a shortfall. So right now the shortfall is 200 and plus like 32,000, and then Bruce is suggesting that because you typically will have other change orders, that we look at maybe 400,000 as the top. I guess it's going to be what it's going to be, right, Bruce?
Mm-hmm.
But so in terms of funding that cost overrun, we have two options. One is just looking at the general fund balance for that. And we have plenty of room, as the memo says, we have plenty of room in the general fund. Even, you know, my best estimate of what June 30th looks like, and looking at the ceiling, we still will have, you know, within our calculations, the unrestricted general fund will be beyond our 20% cap. Or max, I should say. So the general fund, even with the other things that we've talked about coming out of the general fund for FY22. The other approach, and Eric reached out to our attorney to make sure that we could actually use the stormwater fund to fund the overage, because this is considered a culvert and that's within our ordinance, is to use the stormwater fund. So for I guess I'm going to say it this way, for whatever amount that we can. So even though the stormwater fund has a general fund balance, or, you know, estimated general fund unrestricted balance of $1.1 million, it doesn't have that cash because it's tied up in other assets. So, and we don't want to bring that, the operating cash in the stormwater fund too low, because it needs to pay for its daily operating expenses as well. So Bruce and I chatted, and we felt like the best recommendation was to have the stormwater fund cover what it could of the shortfall, and then keeping our cash balance, the cash at a balance we were comfortable with, and then fund from the general fund if we needed to. But it will be looking at, you know, the total cost of the project and monitoring the cash balance in the stormwater fund at the same time.
So questions for Shirley regarding finances and no action is necessary tonight, but they're looking for feedback on the proposals and any other information that's needed.
Okay.
So if I could, I mean, you know, 400,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it's really, we're only really asking for 170,000 over for change orders that could occur, and certainly, you know, keeping fingers crossed, would not expect $170,000 worth of change orders by any means. We've gotten 2 change orders. The first one was a no money change order. The change order 2, you know, is a monetary one, $4,500, but that's split between us and South Burlington, so $2,600 to us. There's a third one coming out. I don't know what the dollar amount is on that right now. You know, so let's just hope they're all nice, cheap ones, like, you know, for lack, I mean, I don't want to sound flip about money, but $4,000 on a $2 million, $3 million project is. So anyway, the real ask is, even though it says 400,000, it's you know, we're looking at, in case there's some other large change orders that happen.
So looking at the whole scope of the project, do you you don't have a crystal ball either, I know, but do you see anything on the horizon that could be a potential?
No, not really, because they're driving the steel piles right now. They've not come in any rejection as of yet. I mean, I could see that being probably a place where we could see some real money if something were to happen. With that said, they still have 24 more to drive. And they think they're going to be done with that by the end of the week. So
That'd be a good hurdle to get down, right?
Yeah, I mean, after that, you know, all the geo work has been done. There was a lot of preliminary work done on this because of the failure of the culvert, the temporary bridge put in. We did a lot of that kind of work up front there. So there shouldn't be any big surprises. And once again, you know, I can't believe but I don't talk about money because I hate it.
One never knows, right? Yeah.
It's like another select board asked me one time, and some of these guys have probably heard this already at the beginning of March, you know, how much money you have left in your salt budget. I gave them a number, and by the end of that month, we were $40,000 the other way. So, you know, I mean.
So the 231,686, that you feel comfortable is available and can be used from the stormwater fund balance right now?
Yep.
Okay.
So Bruce, you mentioned change orders. Did the issue with AT&T result in, or will it result in a change order?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, but it
won't be a change order to us. That's going to be just to keep records straight more than anything. It's any monetary expense that can be attributed to the AT&T cost should be handled between AT&T and the contractor.
Okay.
But the contractor, again, remember once again, his contract is not with AT&T, it's with us.
Right, right.
So that's where we could get sucked into it, for lack of a better term.
Okay. The question, would you remind me how is the culvert being replaced? Or maybe a better way to ask that is, what is the culvert being replaced with?
Precast arch, concrete arch, open bottom.
Yeah, and thus gets into I may have a philosophical question about whether the stormwater fund is the appropriate fund, because if it's to replace a culvert, isn't that replacing a culvert with a culvert? And that's not really what we're doing here. I mean, I realize it's similar.
The stream would never swell if it weren't for stormwater, Jeff.
It was a storm event that took out the existing culvert.
And it didn't, and the stormwater utility didn't pay for that culvert.
Yeah. The question I have, and I guess it's somewhat of a philosophical one, is the culvert construction. Is that what we're doing? Are we building a culvert in this case?
I guess you could call it whatever, I mean, no, we're not putting a pipe back in the ground, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, and so and maybe that's a question for the attorney. I mean, he said, yes, it is close enough. I guess I'm questioning it because if we're putting in another galvanized metal culvert, I could see it.
You won't do that while I'm here, Jeff?
What's that?
You won't do that while I'm here?
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, good. I mean, for good reason. But does that then mean that this is culvert construction? Maybe yes, maybe no. And I get it, but let's say it can be considered culvert construction, and we, I don't know if it's a legal interpretation we need for that. Then the concept is it was a storm event. The culvert was undersized to handle the storm events that it needs to handle, and thus it falls similar to any other culvert replacement, not any other, but other culvert replacements where we're increasing the size of the culvert because we know they need to handle additional flow, higher volumes of flow, higher flow. This would fall under that same category.
Did you, and I know you do all your reading, but the second paragraph on option 2?
Yeah.
They, in the second sentence, actually go down to almost the third, fourth sentence, but the catch-all provision could also be relied upon. So.
I'm just quite, I want to make sure we're on firm ground. I don't think of this project as necessarily a stormwater project. I think it's essentially a bridge that failed and we need to replace it. That's how I think of this. To me, it's not a stormwater project. And I think we're stretching a little bit to say it is a stormwater project. And we might be able to find justification in our our rules or ordinance, whatever, to do that. I've always thought of this as more, we got to keep the road open. We got to replace this essentially a bridge. Yes, it was technically a culvert, but it's essentially a bridge.
But aren't streams and brooks or whatever else you want to call stormwater conveyances?
Sure. I mean,
then how could it not be stormwater related?
Okay.
If that's a conveyance to carry stormwater, that system then is part of the stormwater system that needs to be taken care of.
So thus, anytime we need to replace a bridge, should we be able to tap into the stormwater fund to do that?
You might be able to make an argument for that.
Yeah.
So Jeff, is your question really more of like, are we replacing apples to apples?
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. I'm just asking.
Yeah, and to me, I think, well, I'm sorry, keep stop. To me, I've always thought of this as, first we bonded, we thought we bonded enough, we asked the voters, turns out we didn't, which is not uncommon. So now we're groping with what's the best place to fund it. And I've just never thought of this project as a stormwater project. Mm-hmm. I think of it more of a town infrastructure project. So there's, to me, a different source of money we should look to go to make up that shortfall for infrastructure. I think of this more as if we were rebuilding a road and we bonded for it and we had a shortfall.
I just looked up culvert definitions and types, and one definition: a tunnel carrying a stream or open drain under a road or a railroad. Types of culverts: pipe culvert, box culvert, and I heard Bruce say arch culvert are common types. So I certainly see your point, but I also can see where this would fall with that definition as well. So you bring up a good point. I'm just trying to look at both sides.
I think the simplest way to put it, if the only recommendation was to use the general fund, I'd feel comfortable with that. It's the stormwater piece that I'm just a little queasy over. Particularly since, I know our stormwater fund is not always that, as robust, and there was lots of controversy over stormwater issues, particularly when it came to, homeowners associations having to upgrade their systems. So I just want to be careful, I guess, is maybe,
I guess I would look at it almost like when you talk about the infrastructure. If you look at the Williston Road Industrial Ave intersection that's being done right now, water line was moved as part of that project. Some of that was paid for by the state because it was on our road, so they have to pay to move it. stuff that was underneath Williston Road that got moved. We looked at the life cycle cost of that water line and took money from both the water fund and from traffic impact fees to pay for that project, as far as moving the water line was concerned. So that was infrastructure that was under a road that was totally separate. I mean, water has nothing to do, water in a pipe has nothing to do with the road, but yet it was infrastructure that ended up having to be moved, so the cost was split between more than one fund.
Yeah, and I get this, it's not that there's a split per se, it's what one piece of that split is that is causing me consternation.
Why is there, why does the staff have an opinion as to option 1 or option 2 anyway?
I think if we, certainly not staff's position on this.
Yeah, I know, but I thought in the memo it said, staff's recommendation is option 2, should the select board wish to use stormwater fund to address at least a portion. Is that if, should the select board wish to use stormwater funds? Otherwise?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to convey there, Ted.
Okay, but does it make a difference to the town's finances if we go into the general fund balance, which would still be within the policy of the general fund balance if we took that much money out anyway?
Yeah, there's certainly room in the general funds.
Okay. Yeah. So if we did that, Jeff's emphasis on definitional things would be satisfied, and no harm would be done, and the pillars of the town would remain sturdy.
Yeah, these are staff looked at. These are both options within your purview to decide. It's like the question of which direction the board wants to take from which pool of money or combination thereof.
Could you pose the question then to the attorneys that Jeff is asking, and how is South Burlington paying for this?
Stormwater fund.
They are.
Well, they might have a different policy. They might have a different policy for their stormwater fund.
Yeah.
They might have defined culvert in their policy.
They might have.
And specifically identified Muddy Brook culvert.
They may have, Jeff, but not while I was there. They didn't.
So it's actually kind of a bit of a joke, but.
Yeah.
Any other questions we need to have resolved before we are after tonight?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the VLCT annual meeting voting delegate. As you have read, the VLCT is having their annual meeting later on this month, and we always have to have we should have a voting delegate, and the recommendation is that we continue what we've done in the past and have the town manager as our delegate. So there is a motion proposed.
I'll move to appoint Town Manager Eric Wells as Williston's voting delegate for the Vermont League of Cities and Towns annual meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
None. Eric just doesn't answer one critical question. Are you happy doing this?
Yes, I serve on the passive board of directors for the
That's right.
Casualty and Insurance Fund, so I'll be attending and happy to represent the town.
Okay. Good.
So
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And no abstentions.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Fair Union Collective Bargaining Agreement. Eric, a brief discussion.
Yep, as I've shared with the board, staff's reached a tentative agreement on the new contract with the fire union that would be retroactive to this past July 1st. The union membership did ratify this tentative agreement last Friday, so I'd ask the board would like to consider approving this new agreement this evening and authorizing the manager to execute on the town's behalf.
There is a motion proposed.
I'll move to approve a collective bargaining agreement between the town and the Williston Professional Firefighters IAFF Local 4611 effective July 1st, 2021, and authorize the town manager to sign the agreement on the town's behalf.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And no abstentions. Moving on then to the volunteer appointment, we heard at our last meeting from the two candidates for the Catamount Community Forest Committee, Reed Parker and David Saladino. David Saladino made a comment to us when he was here that he thought that if everything was equal among the two candidates, that he, and it's a toss-up, he would accept other positions in town. He already has one on the DRB, and would support the other candidates. So, other thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I remembered that as well, and when he said that, I thought that's good because it's a toss ball, a jump ball. I thought they were both equally qualified and enthusiastic. So, given that David said he would defer in that circumstance, my thought was I was going to promote the candidacy of Reed Parker tonight.
Other thoughts?
I did have a chance to watch the interviews, and that was one of the very first things actually David Saladino said, and that did strike me as well, and so I would also support Reed Parker.
Ditto for me.
The chair would entertain a motion.
I would.
I'd move to appoint Reed Parker to the Catamount Community Forest Management Committee for an unexpired 2-year term through June 30, 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
I plan to abstain because I'm on that committee and feel awkward.
Yes, that's why we're doing that tonight.
Thank you.
So, thank you. If there's no other further discussion, then all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And one abstention, Jeff. That leads us to the manager's report.
So a few things I'll highlight from my written report this evening. Some personnel news. Announce our assistant road foreman position has been filled by Rick Wixon. He's a 16th year of employment with the town. He's been a valued employee, and I want to congratulate him on his recent promotion to step into that role. We have some remaining openings in the highway department and one in the water sewer division as well, which we are hopeful to be able to fill here in the coming soon as possible with winter on the horizon here. So we're looking to fill those roles here moving forward. We also hired a new youth services librarian, Bonnie Lord. She'll begin work in early October for us here. We have an opening on the DRB. Steve Lamchut has resigned, and Cindy Thurston is stepping down from her role as health officer at the end of this year. Certainly will do it again, but Cindy, I worked with Cindy while she was an assistant clerk, and she's served the town very well in that health officer role, which is a very challenging role to fill. So we certainly would look for anyone interested in stepping up. I don't want to dissuade anyone from filling that role, as it's very important, but I know we spoke with Terry as the deputy health officer, and he'll help out in the interim, but certainly look for some good applicants out there. I included in your packet our local option tax report for the end of last fiscal year. The positive to take away with all the uncertainty we started with at the beginning of the fiscal year is we ended with being over what we budgeted for local option tax receipts of just over $281,000. As I looked at the data, this is really driven by our sales tax receipts, and as we've shared with the board throughout the year, our rooms and meals were particularly lower last year. They're starting to take a rebound towards the end of the year, but we'll continue to watch that, analyze that as we project for FY23 revenues as we get ready for the budget process moving ahead. It's not my report, but we've started the budget process at the staff level. Shirley sent out capital budget planning sheets to department heads earlier this week. So we'll be embarking on that internally, and I'll be speaking with the board further about that and scheduling moving ahead as we jump into budget time. And last, I'll share the town fire department's received a Fire Act grant in the amount of $98,000. I want to recognize our Lieutenant Keith Baker for his work to obtain this grant, and it's going to be a system to allow the fire apparatus exhaust to be vented when the fire trucks are arriving and departing the station. And This is something that was originally planned for the station, and due to the scope and the cost of the project, it was something that had to be deferred. And fortunately, we've been able to obtain this grant. And speaking with the chief, I probably the earliest timeline we can plan on is sometime next year for this work to take place. But it's we're fortunate to get a lot of grant funds for the town in the last year. And this is another good success story here.
Okay, good job.
That's all I have for the board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to other business, and Eric just mentioned about Cindy Thurston. I asked her to submit a letter of resignation since she was going to do it, so we could advertise the position and hopefully have it filled by the time she wishes to step down. So she has written to me as of September 1st, 2021. I would like to officially tender my resignation as Williston Town Health Officer, effective as soon as the position can be filled, but no later than 12/31/21. It has been my great pleasure to serve Williston in this capacity. I've had the chance to work with multiple agencies, all of which have proved helpful and knowledgeable. I've had the privilege of being welcomed inside many homes, often a humbling experience for me. Thank you for this unique opportunity. I remain available to assist in acclimating the new health officer if that is beneficial. Gratefully, Cindy Thurston. If we do not have a health officer in place by the end of the calendar year, the deputy health officer will be the acting health officer at that time. And if the deputy health officer should resign, who's me, the duties go to the chair of the select board. So, so we'll have somebody covered. Is there any other business to talk about tonight? If not, then,
wait, before, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
I was trying to get three things. I'll try to be quick. The energy coordinator position. I would like to have a discussion about that position, and in particular, my understanding is that we have the option to consider that position in next year's budget. What I'm specifically asking is if we will consider actually creating that position before next year. And I can explain if you want, what I see as the need. We're already behind the 8 ball on this issue. So I guess I'm presenting that question of is there interest in exploring creating the energy coordinator position within the town in this budget, the budget we're in right now, as opposed to possibly considering it in next year's budget. I realize we would have to understand, the financial impacts of that, that type of thing. That would need to be a piece of it. But I guess just simply said, I think the need is come and gone. It's already past us. The longer we wait, the further we're going to fall behind.
So the town manager will be proposing something for both the energy committee and the coordinator position. If he could do that before the budget cycle happens, then we can discuss whether we wish to do something immediately or wait.
Okay, fair enough. Good, thank you. The next question has to do with the edge. And Eric, as I was listening to you explain the concept of how we would explore a community center, the question I have is, I've read some of the postings in like Front Porch Forum and folks' interest in pursuing a town involvement in keeping, in somehow investing in, or I don't know if that's really the right word, but maintaining a edge-like facility at the edge. Is that at all possible?
I would say no, Jeff.
Okay,
as
that would have been my opinion. had wanted to ask that when the question was being raised, and I don't see how we could.
I received a lot of inquiries in the last week, and it's a private transaction. We don't know any details of it, but I know I responded to some folks who were asking does the town know about these transactions before they take place? And we find out about it mostly at the same time as
right. Okay.
else, but I would say it's not an option for us.
And then my last question is, it happened during the discussion about the senior center. What is the town's role or participation in a senior center right now?
Yeah, we've had for a number of years in the recreation budget. Essentially, the seniors group that's used the Masonic Center, they're charged a nominal fee to use the space. So we've subsidized that fee, and they haven't met due to COVID, and actually exchanged some calls and messages with the organizer of the group, and they decided to hold off on meeting a little bit longer due to COVID.
I just got another one from her today.
Okay.
Saying they are holding off for now because of COVID and the Delta variant and then flu season coming. They're holding off for the time being.
Oh, okay. And thus, I mean, it's at least theoretically possible that they might find another space that has an adequate meeting room and kitchen, and the town would continue in the same vein that it currently is to assist with whatever renting using that space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe it's been low, and the property changed hands from the Masons to J.L. Davis over the last year, and that was the first I heard this evening that they had some future plans for the space in a year and 4 months. I know they were receptive for them continuing to meet there in the interim. So.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Follow up one thing. Eric, do you have thoughts on when the information about the energy committee and coordinator positions, when you would be presenting that to us or providing that to us?
Yeah, we tentatively looked at September select board meeting. We had initially intended to do this a little bit earlier. We had some other items come up, but it's my intent to potentially look at next agenda when I discuss it with Terry.
Okay. So it sounds like this fall.
Yeah, that's been on the work plan for quite a bit.
Good, thank you. That's it.
That's it. Any other business? We're adjourned.